Good morning, I'm Constable Kira Brooks. I'm your Community Safety and Wellbeing Officer. Last year, I came to you guys to talk to you about our partnership with the CMHA, which I feel is super important in our community. Today, I have Lynn Levine with CMHA, and I have Constable Guy Peters with Barrie Police. Their partnership is invaluable to our community, and there has been an enhanced program that has happened this year, and I want to interview them and ask them how that program helps with community safety and community well-being. So take it away, guys.
So, maybe we should talk a little bit about what our experience has been with this Enhanced Coast program, right?
Sure.
Okay. So from a CMHA perspective, I guess, from a CMHA perspective, it's an important partnership that we have with Barrie Police, and it's really a partnership between CMHA, Barrie Police, and the community. And we go out on the road, Guy and I. We were the enhanced team this year. So we began in January, and our role really was to engage the community and clients on calls who were experiencing some kind of mental health distress or mental health crisis, so that we could help them get connected to resources that they might not have been aware of or would have difficulty accessing. Because let's face it, right? And when anyone's in a crisis, you're not necessarily able to be your best self. And so things like accessing community services or resources might become more difficult and more cumbersome.
So when you say that you're an enhanced unit, what does that actually mean so that the community can understand what that means?
Well, we work together and we ride together. So we're attending to someone who's either in crisis, or we're following up with someone after the crisis to offer them support to maybe prevent them from falling into that again, whether it's a mental health or sometimes it's for addiction. And the approach that we try and take is to, I guess, lessen the stigmatism.
Yeah.
So I'm a police officer, but I wear a golf shirt and blue jeans, and Lynn's always nicer dressed than I am, and we drive a Dodge Grand Caravan that doesn't say police on the side. And the reason we do that is when we pull up to someone's house, it just looks like two people coming to visit someone without having a police cruiser in front of the house. And the feedback that we've gotten is quite positive, because folks prefer to receive the support, receive information, but they do not like a police cruiser in front of the house when it's related to mental health and the stigma with it. The other point is, for me, what I enjoy is people look at me a little different, or look at a police officer a little different.
Yeah, and we've gotten feedback from the community about that, about how, from their vantage point, it's eye-opening, and it's really nice for them to see that, police wear, different hats. So yes, they have the authority hat that they have to wear, but there's also the compassionate side that I don't think gets a lot of attention or a lot of discussion out in the real world. And I think that's an important piece, and so we bring that. We get a lot of feedback from the community about, oh, I didn't realize that the police would be interested in doing something like this. Oh, this is such an important thing. And they're very grateful or thankful about it. But a lot of times surprised, eh? We get a lot of like, oh, you're a police officer and you do this? Oh, that's interesting, right? Or, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So we've been doing this program for a little while now, and I understand that you guys are an addition, and that's where the enhanced come from. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was an additional team that could ride together. And I think the other important piece is that in terms of enhanced, it's a team. So we're the same team. We're not rolling different crisis workers in, riding with Guy or it's not a different police officer that I'm riding with on a like daily. Whereas in the past, before we had this enhanced program, that was happening sometimes. It was more of a cyclical rotational thing, and I think there is real value and real power in empowerment in having a consistent set of teams that can go out, because often we might see people more than one time. So from the community perspective, it's helpful for it to be consistent. You're not, because people who are struggling, whether it be a mental health crisis or just a situational crisis or an addiction issue or homelessness, whatever it is, I think it becomes really important for someone who is already feeling disenfranchised or marginalized in some way, to not have to start over again every time to tell their story and be heard. And so the consistency becomes really important because they're seen, they're heard, and they're respected, and they feel that way. And so they feel like their voices are heard in a much more respectful and empowered way, and that's important.
And another enhancement or a realization that I've had with this experience is from the caregiver. So the person that's maybe you have someone with dementia that you're trying to provide care for, or you have a child who has behaviors that are so extreme that it's very difficult to manage, or you have someone that is addicted to drugs and or alcohol and aren't making the life choices that you would want them to make, and they're burnt out. And so we try and offer folks who are caring for another person some resources. The COVID isolation for everyone, and then you have someone that's struggling with mental health, that also is a tremendous burden on the person, but it's also, we're finding, such a massive burden on the people that are trying to care for them. Yeah. So offering them some resources, some coping skills, some other supports that they might not necessarily think of in terms of whether it's funding or through government services, or if it's maybe respite support through other organizations, to just kind of take the edge off, because we find that it's people not just struggling with mental health themselves, but it's the people that are loving and caring for them that are struggling as well.
Yeah, and I think you probably agree with me too that when we in those situations are being there and validating that compassion fatigue is real, and that that it's not a failing on their part, that they are doing the best they can with what they have and going above and beyond as much as they can, and then we sort of allow them temporarily, we say share the load with us for a bit, and then we help them get plugged into something that can maybe long-term help them lighten their own load, right?
Right.
I think that.
And sometimes, a lot of times, we don't get the traction that we would want to have with a particular person because they don't see their sort of circumstance the way we see their circumstance, and we feel as though at times people can deny that they actually have a mental illness, which is frustrating to support. So we kind of have this approach where we try and plant seeds with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's because sometimes we go in with the best intentions, and and I can be guilty of I want to save the world kind of thing, and that might not be where a person is at. So we need to meet people where they're at, and sometimes they're not necessarily ready to make significant change or even to receive what we have to offer. So in those situations, like Guy says, where, you know, we see ourselves as planting seeds, and we don't know when they're going to be, you know, be flourished, but we hope that our intervention or our follow-up, or, you know, the little bits that we offer and leave will nourish that seed enough that down the road the individual might think about calling that crisis line, or even, you know, more open to having Coast come back and say, you know what, something that you said resonated with me, and can we talk about that some more?
And I don't mean to be a floating head. I'm still here. I'm just in the background. But I do want to comment on something. I was on the road the other day, because I often go out on the road, and there was a mental health call for service, and the team was going out, but they weren't there yet. But the individual who was experiencing that crisis at the time was asking for Constable Peters. So I think it's really important, when you're saying you planted that seed, I think it's important for the community to know that you are making these relationships, that you are making these differences, and that they are being able to experience one officer who they are being able to connect with and come back. Do you have any comments on how you feel about that? I don't even know if you might have heard that on the radio, but this individual was asking particularly for you to calm down.
And that happens all the time.
Yeah, I think
a lot of people ask for you.
A lot of times an officer is usually in the heat of the moment, and they're having to deal with the behavior that's presented in that moment. So sometimes it results in handcuffs being put on to ensure the safety of the individual and the people around. And sometimes it means transporting to hospital, and sometimes it means transporting to the police station. What's really fun and really interesting about this role is the handcuffs come out a lot less, and it's an opportunity for a person to have a conversation with a police officer who isn't in uniform and carrying that authority. It's just two people sitting around the or the kitchen table having a discussion of what's most important to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where you're able to make that connection with the individual on a personal level. And then, of course, they want to talk to you about the speeding ticket that they got. And they want to talk to you about some legal advice and that sort of thing. But I really enjoy that part of it.
It does lessen the stigma,
totally
having this unit.
Yeah.
It does. It does. And really, there should be, I mean, it's not like you choose to have a mental illness. It's not like sometimes you can control it, but you can certainly treat it. Maybe you can't necessarily cure it, but you can certainly treat it. And it's just as important as your body health, is your mental health. And so we're trying to encourage people to focus on it as much as they can so that it's easier for the people that care and love them the most, but it's also easier for them in terms of their quality of life.
We're trying to, I think, help equip them with tools, right? A lot of times people don't realize what internal resources they have, their own sense of competency, their own sense of resiliency and resourcefulness. So sometimes we're reminding them about, hey, you have a really well-equipped toolbox, or you know what? Maybe you need some more tools in the toolbox. Let's give you a hand on finding those tools and adding them.
Well, I loved this interview. This is one of my most favorite interviews every year. Just going to crouch down and thank my two participants today for taking the time and educating us. I do have a list of resources, so if you are in mental health crisis or you do need to reach out, please feel free. Your mental health, like Constable Peters said, is just as important as your physical health. So please do take care, and thank you very much for being here with me today, you guys.